The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, looks like it will be continuing the trend of seeing people watch the show initially and then quickly tune out and not come back to it at all. That is what we are seeing based on IMDb reviews for the second season. Before we get to this, I'd like to ask you, please hit that subscribe button, hit that bell for notifications so you don't miss any of our future videos here at the Trent Report. Roll this up over at thatparkplace.com. And it looks like people are already tuning out of The Lord of the Rings of Power Season 2, even after they released 3 episodes right away. The number of IMDb reviews for the first episode of Season 2 and the third episode decreased by over 50%. There are over 3,800 reviews for the first episode, Elven Kings Under the Sky. The second episode only has over 2,200 reviews, and the third episode has just 1,800 reviews, or just over 1,800 reviews. Between the first and second episodes, the number of reviews declined by 42%. Between the first and third, it's a 52% decline. You can see right here, this is a screenshot I took this morning of the number of reviews by episode for The Lord of the Rings of Power on IMDb. Again, you can see 3.8, 2.2, and 1.8. Interestingly enough, the scores are going down to 7.5, 7.4, and 7.0. So the people who are actually staying in, watching this stuff, are giving the show lower scores as you get in. Obviously, not a good sign. So the people who tuned out right away probably made the right decision. This was a pattern we saw with the Acolyte. Pointed this out in a number of videos previously. We saw that Acolyte viewership was declining, and we also saw that kind of was correlated with the number of reviews on IMDb, or at least it looked like it. As I said, this appears to be following the same trend that the first season saw. We had this report from Kim Masters at The Hollywood Reporter that she shared back in April 2023, where 63% of people who watched part of the first season did not finish it. She wrote this: while Amazon, like other streamers, provides only limited data, and internally it held information even more closely than usual on the series, sources confirm that The Rings of Power had a 37% domestic completion rate, customers who watched the entire series. For those outside the United States, the completion rate was higher. Masters shared overseas, it reached 45%. A 50% completion rate would be a solid but not spectacular result, according to insiders. So 45% completion rate means 55% of people didn't watch it. We're already seeing, based on these reviews, around 52% decline. So almost on pace with the international completion rate from the first season, if not almost the same, right? It's very, very close. 3% difference right there. While not a one-to-one reflection to Masters' numbers, the number of IMDb reviews for the first season declined by nearly 50% from the first episode to the 8th episode. So it was kind of close to that international number. As of writing, the first episode has over 54,000 reviews, while the 8th episode has just over 28,000. That's a decline of 48%. Remember, it's 55%. So that's pretty close. That's pretty close when you're looking at these total number of IMDb reviews based on what Kim Masters reported at The Hollywood Reporter. So I do think that there is a correlation between the number of people reviewing these episodes on IMDb and the people actually watching the show. So we also have an anecdotal evidence, piece of anecdotal evidence right here. Gary Beekler, spelled his name wrong, have to fix that, aka Nerdrotic, also indicated that people were already abandoning the second season. He wrote this on X: there was about 32 people at our free, fully booked 2-episode screening of The Rings of Power, and a dozen left after the first episode. So I don't know what percentage that is. I didn't do the calculation on that, but it sounds about right. Sounds about right what we're seeing with the IMDb going down as well, right around there. I think we're looking at around 40% or something around there is what it looks like. So you can't make this stuff up. You can't make this stuff up. Regardless, the show will have its real test when we see the Nielsen numbers that come out. And obviously, I think they are trying to cook the books a little bit by releasing all 3 episodes at once. Remember, they only released 2 episodes for their season premiere back in 2022 for the first season. We do have some numbers for that first season from Nielsen, thanks to Now It's Known sharing these on X when he was looking at Reacher season 2 numbers, which absolutely dominated and destroyed the Rings of Power numbers. I think it was like 1.6 billion when Reacher season 2 dropped, which was a massive, massive increase from when the show first arrived on Prime Video. Interestingly enough, too, I think they released all episodes when they released that first season of Reacher. So just completely crushing it because they only released it episodically. I think they might have done a 2-episode premiere. Not sure. I'd have to check on that. But this is what now it's known, and Nielsen reported for the Rings of Power weekly. So the premiere had 1.253 billion minutes watched during that 2-episode premiere in 2022. Second week, third episode premiered. The number declined to 1.203 billion. It fell even further with the release of its fourth episode. I mean, this was a huge drop right here. We're seeing it drop to 988 million minutes watched. That is a massive, massive decline right there. We're looking at 300 million minutes watched by the time that third week rolled around, the fourth episode. So I think people had kind of checked into it and immediately checked out. And I think that reflects what Kim Masters reported at the Hollywood Reporter last year. We saw it continue to decline in its fourth week to 966 million minutes. And then it did rebound in the penultimate episode, likely due to people attempting to binge watch the show. It brought in 988 million minutes. And then the week of the release of the season finale, it had recovered back to 1.137 billion minutes, but it quickly plummeted after that. I do think it stayed on for one extra week, and then it was off the charts completely 2 weeks after the season finale, indicating that this show did not really have any good longevity. Very different from what we saw with Mandalorian season 2, where that was on Nielsen's charts for months after it released its finale in December 2021 or whatever it was when Mando season 2 came out, 2022. I can't remember. Yeah, so you saw it already declining there. We're seeing it decline again. We'll really see what happens with Nielsen numbers. We got to wait a month for the Nielsen numbers. I think we'll get Illuminate numbers back early and might give us a little bit of a ballpark, but those Illuminate numbers are a little suspicious, especially when we saw the Nielsen numbers continue to decline with the Acolyte, where we saw Illuminate kind of jump up a little bit. So maybe some little shenanigans happening there. Obviously, they're trying to calculate stuff way more in advance on a week-by-week basis, where Nielsen does indeed take about a month to push out its numbers following the release of a show. And as I said, it won't be a one-to-one comparison when we get those Nielsen numbers a month from now. Because Prime Video did release 3 episodes for the show's first week instead of 2. In theory, this should see the minutes watched increase, but it's very possible that number could decline given the fact that seemingly so many people tuned out of the show in the first season and do not appear to have returned to the show for the second season. So we'll see what happens here. I'm guessing that it's going to be a lot less than what we saw for the season 1 premiere. Even if it's the same as the season 1 premiere, I think that is a massive, massive failure on the part of the show, given the fact that they released an entire extra episode to try and boost those numbers up. Because I think at the end of the day, they know that this show has lost a lot of people and they aren't likely going to come back. I think this report from Kim Masters at the Hollywood Reporter last year is accurate. 63% of people tuned out of this show, abandoned it, did not finish it. And I don't think that they are going to come back for season 2. And I don't think they have. And I think the people that have come back are quickly abandoning this, as well as we're already seeing 50% declines here based on IMDb reviews, which is very similar to what we saw with the international completion rate being about 55% of people tuning out internationally. So we'll see what's happening. It doesn't look good for the Rings of Power. And I think that is good for Tolkien fans because this show is an absolute abomination. I did watch the first episode. It was awful. They literally turned Sauron into a piece of black licorice spaghetti monster. And he's just literally jumping around like he's a slinky. He's literally bouncing around like a slinky does, dropping downstairs. It's absolutely awful. It's terrible. None of the stuff really makes a lot of sense. It is completely contrary to what Tolkien wrote in the appendices. It's completely contrary to what Tolkien wrote in the Silmarillion. It's completely contrary to Tolkien's notes that were published by his son Christopher Tolkien in Unfinished Tales. There is seemingly nothing Tolkien about this show anymore, aside from the name of the Lord of the Rings and the name of the characters. They have completely butchered this show, and it is unrecognizable as anything that Tolkien wrote. And I think they're doing this out of malice. They hate the Lord of the Rings. They hate the fact that J.R. Tolkien was a Catholic and that there are Catholic themes in this show, and they want to destroy it. And that's exactly what I think they are doing with this show. But let me know what you guys make of the viewership completely, seemingly crashing, just like we saw with season 1. Let me know in the comments below. Remember to always be charitable, especially to each other, but to always speak the truth.